Hey everybody, welcome back to Brain Power. This is episode 14, and today we have Mikey Anderson from Think Agents joining the show. This is an episode I've been extremely excited about doing. I've been following Think, I think, since they first launched and announced their launch. I did myself mint one of the Genesis Think Agents, so very much looking forward to that official launch coming later this summer. And today we dive into everything surrounding what Think Agents is, what their vision is for personalized AI, how it fits into the broader scope of decentralized AI, and all of the great stuff that comes along with that. If you enjoyed today's episode, definitely check out Think Agents on X and also the other social platforms. They actually have their own podcast. It's really great. So anyway, without further ado, here is Mikey Anderson.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
You're listening to Brain Power.
All right, awesome. Everybody, welcome back to Brain Power. This is episode 14, and honestly, one of the episodes I've been most excited to record because it is with Mikey of Think Agents, and Think is working on a ton of awesome stuff. I am both a follower of their project and also a multiple minter of their Genesis. Cool. I guess it's technically NFT agent, but I will let Mikey get into what all of that means. Welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on.
So good to meet you again. We met live in person, and so good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Mike and I met down in ETH Denver a couple months back when they were rolling out their plan for Souls. And we will get into what that means. But Mike, can you just give an overview to all the Brain Power listeners as to what Think Agents is, kind of what the vision is and what you're working on?
Yeah, so Think is AI you own. When you think about that for a second, you're like, what do you mean AI you own? Well, just about everywhere you go to use AI, you're renting. You're giving your data, you're giving the way that you type, the way that you interact with it, any kind of photos you put into it. You're renting something that you're giving them all your data. We've designed from the bottom up a way of creating AI that you can actually own. And so what does that look like? Well, you need to be able to own the network side of things, and you need to be able to own the software side of things, and then you need the data on top of it. And so there's really three things that the Think protocol does. The first thing that it does is it defines an agent. And that happens to be really important in the same way that the Constitution needs to define a person and design the liberties that they have. We define an agent and we put a boundary around them that has cryptographic security. We put a wallet inside of that, and we allow that to be the auth for a server. And we design those patterns so that it's not just Eliza or LangChain or Souls that can act as that server. It could be anything, right? And because what we want to do is we want to take anybody that's building open source, anybody that's even building a closed source product, and saying like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if instead of the internet being something where like you go to GoDaddy and you pay them to let you have a domain name and then you set up your server, what if we do that on the blockchain? And so every agent has an address or a name, and they have the ability to serve content through that agent by having a server. And so that's the geeky way of explaining how you have intelligence you own. And we're taking that to market by allowing people to mint a first edition Think Agent. And so you can kind of think about it like if Zuck was starting Facebook and he said, hey, for 24 hours, I'm going to let people mint a first edition Facebook account. And then he said, hey, as we build Facebook, like, you're going to be the first people that get access to Pages. You're going to be the first people that get access to Facebook Connect, right? And you basically treat that as like your atomic network that you're going to grow from. That's what's just happened. And so you can expect in July, which is just a few weeks away now, they're going to start to be classes where the people who've been part of our Builders Club are now using the Souls beta, and they're actually building agents, learning how to use them in community. And we also have a Thinkubator lined up, which the whole idea of that is to find the projects that are actually ready to go and become their own project, either as a Web 2 or a Web 3 startup. And we're helping those launch because we want to see Think Agents become the standard for intelligence. And there's a lot of advantages to building this way versus building a whole bunch of silos. And so I think we can actually win.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. I really like the analogy that you made with Facebook because I think that's something that'll resonate with everyone listening to this. I would imagine anyone listening to this either has or has had a Facebook account or something similar. And so like you said, a good way of looking at this was that Genesis mint of Think Agents is basically like you saying, okay, I now own a profile within this much grander ecosystem that can plug into all of these other things. And you mentioned a couple other things in there. You mentioned Souls, and then also the other builders who are building presumably products, applications, agents that will interact with your agent. And so can you dive into a little bit, like, how does that connection happen? So what comes to my mind, as somebody who, I came into the DAI space from the crypto space, not from the AI space previously. And I was looking at this almost in the same way that you have your wallet address, which you can then use as like your proof of identity everywhere you go, right? And then you, if you want, you can have like an ENS name that's assigned to it. So now they can find me on chain. And this is essentially accomplishing the same thing, but plugging into these different AI projects. Am I like, I guess, regurgitating that back correctly?
You're thinking about it right. There is this problem though, where people think about AI and AI agents as being more like tools than they see them as being peers or like our children.
Okay.
And so these AI agents right now, they're not always accurate. They're not always great at what they're doing, but the learning curve that they have is like, oh, I can see that like they're getting smarter faster than a university student would, for instance, right? Like they're gaining all these resources. Our core belief here is that actually you and your agent, you're only going to get as much freedom as your agent has, because we're moving into an age where as a human with the speed of my brain, I can't think fast enough or be in enough places to actually be economically competitive. Kind of like a human has a hard time being economically competitive versus a steam engine when it comes to digging or mining or driving holes or whatever. Like my brain is going to have a really hard time keeping up with the intelligence economy. And so my agent becomes more important than my social account. Kind of like if you don't have a social account, how do you connect with family and friends that don't live in your area anymore, right? Like,
right.
But I wish that I owned my social account.
Yeah, no, for sure. I see what you're saying. I guess the question I have though is when we talk about operability with these other things, are these other things, because Think is not a blockchain, right? It's a protocol that could be deployed and interact with applications that are deployed on blockchain, similar to Morpheus in that way.
It uses the blockchain. Yep.
Okay, but understood. I guess what I'm trying to understand is, are these projects that interact with your agent, are they, how am I trying to frame this? Are they built within a box within the Think ecosystem, or are these things that could be standalone, but they also interoperate with Think agents?
Yep, they can be totally standalone. So like once we launch our first version, we might work with the folks behind Morpheus super agents to say, hey, let's make it so that these Think agents can actually just log in with their wallet. It detects that and pulls in the data. And
got it. That makes sense.
Vice versa, because once you make those standards, then everybody can use them.
And that's what I was trying to get at, is trying to find the connection point, because when I talk to other people in the DAI space working on projects, there tends to be this, because like so much stuff is being built so quickly and everyone's trying to find their product market fit and figure out, okay, what's the piece of this puzzle that I can best deliver to our ecosystem? It's sometimes hard to figure out, like, where do they connect with each other? For example, for a long time, I would have people who I would talk to about Morpheus assume that we were like directly competing with, or trying to directly compete with something like BitTensor, which is not actually true. The two are actually relatively complementary to one another, even though there's certain aspects of the project that maybe have some overlap. When we look at like DAI at large, these are all like various pieces, you know, that fit together to make what you were just describing, which is like the personal agentic AI, or like your representation on chain with AI. So I do want to talk about some of those things that are being built. Can you dive into Souls a little bit? Because I saw your demo in Denver and thought it was awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So if you think about when the internet came about, like, remember, you're probably too young to remember this, but AOL literally used to mail everybody CDs, and they had a closed garden internet back then, where like in order to even access a website, you basically needed to go through their permission to do so. What happened though is Mark Andreessen and team came in and they popularized Netscape. Netscape, you had the internet. That was a standard that like the scientists and the government created. Then he made Netscape happen. And then all the venture capitalists in Silicon Valley said, oh, now everybody can have access to this internet in a democratic way. We're going to start putting money into books online, Amazon. We're going to start putting money into, you know, all these different things online, search engines and the like. and eBay and PayPal, and an ecosystem grows around that. So you can think of Souls as being like Netscape. It's like, what is a standards based way to be able to interact with decentralized AI in a way that is on your computer, right? It's local. It means that you own the data. It's personalized, meaning that you can make the agent what you want, and it evolves with you, meaning it's extensible. It can use tools. It can do agent to agent transactions, and the whole thing's open source. So as we're building this, let's say that Morpheus or Super Agents wants to come in and make it work for their product, they can just submit the code, or they can just fork it and use it.
And is that's how open source?
Yeah, we'll be open source at main launch. So it'll be when it's in private beta, we're not going to open source it yet, so we can move fast and not worry about, because when you're open sourcing, you got to keep everything really clean.
Yeah.
We want to be able to move fast until launch.
This is so exciting. It just makes me think of, I keep like running through this future, like vision of what the future might look like in my head, where, you know how people will say like, oh, it's all one song if they're referring to like a Grateful Dead show or something. I keep looking at like your device as it's all one app, and like that app was your agent, and on the back end is going to be all these very this complicated web of agent to agent, multiple context protocols, these things where they're all talking together, but from the user's perspective, it just works because it does, basically. It's like, I think most people have, and even myself, have a hard time wrapping my head around like the implications of what that actually looks like and how it can touch literally every piece of data that you interact with. Can you talk a little bit about like some of the things that you're most excited about that you're seeing people build, or maybe talk about building with regard to like utility and use case?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of this is around personal agents right now. So like most people in the world, like my guess would be like 99.9% of people have never built an AI agent. Right? Probably
definitely. Probably more. Yeah.
And when you think about like how many people have used even ChatGPT or something like that in a way that's like something that they couldn't have done with Google, it's like pretty small. So we're at the very beginning of what I think will be the most important change in human history. And so a lot of what we're doing is about education. Mm-hmm. How do you let somebody come in and actually build an agent in a community, utilize these tools, and then have a place to say, I wish my agent could do this too, and the support to go make it happen? Like at the end of the day, Web3 gives us those tools, and that's really what we're doing. Is like everybody else is going to go out and they're going to be like, well, we need to have 20% month over month growth, and we need to get to $4 million ARR so that we can raise our Series A. Mm-hmm. And they're all going to do that exact same thing. Meanwhile, the vast majority of people in the world are going to have no idea how to actually use AI, how to participate in the intelligence economy. And so we are onboarding the people, we're giving them the browser that they can use, and we're giving them the community and the incubator to be able to then eventually launch products. And a lot of people will go be part of like for instance, right? Like there's no decentralized Pinecone or Superbase. And those are kind of things that in Web 2 everybody's using for their AI. It's like, why doesn't that exist? And like, yeah, you get 1,000 people who are using an agent saying, I would like to have that service. How many Web3 projects do you think will pivot to provide that for them?
Like natively building it themselves? I mean, well, with tools like what you guys are making, hopefully all of them, but on their own, they won't, because they won't be able to, right? Like,
yeah, if they didn't have the customers, and if those customers didn't know how to use the products, then they wouldn't be able to create those things.
Right. There'd be no tooling.
Thousands of people, then people are like, a lot of projects, a lot of early stage startups are just like, how do I get a few customers? How do I deliver something of value to them? If you have 1,000 customers saying, hey, I would love to pay $100 a year to subscribe to this thing, and like as a startup founder, you've got $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue, and a community of people ready to go, or annual recurring revenue.
Sure. No, you're good. But yeah, now it opens the door to build those things. Yep. Absolutely. Do you have any concerns? So crypto has had this use case issue, right? And I guess I'm going to differentiate between crypto and DAI really quick, but then bring them back together. Web3 or crypto or whatever people want to call it nowadays has had this use case issue, and there are a lot of people who say that blockchain's like the solution that doesn't have the problem, which is only true if you don't need it. And what I mean by that is if we look in the world where the places are that have like the highest percentage of Bitcoin adoption, for example, it's places with really unstable currencies. You have like the Argentinas of the world, the Venezuelas of the world with high adoption. And I believe that AI and decentralized AI is going to pretty much happen the same way, where it will become vastly important when it needs to be if you live somewhere that has overreach and controls on your access to intelligence, whether that be from a nation state, a mega corporation, a combination. I personally think that's going to happen here in the United States. It's just going to be hidden a little bit better than maybe it will be in other places. But I run into this question of like, do enough people care? Like, are we just too ahead of the curve on this that other people maybe don't realize why this matters? And then if they do realize it, is it going to be too late by that point? Can you speak to your thoughts on this? Because it's a question I get from people a lot. Is like, do people care about this?
Okay, so first of all, scalable AI systems benefit from the blockchain no matter what. Back in 2018, I believe it was, early 2018, I worked with a bunch of the ML ops engineers that I was a part of. We were building the United Nations Global Data Program, Nike, Toyota, Merck's ML ops systems. And we identified that, hey, once we go to like hyper scaling on different clouds, or maybe even multi-cloud in what we're doing, there's no sense of truth anymore. So we actually need to use, back then we started using the Ethereum blockchain as a way to be able to hash things so that between systems, you actually have a shared database that's private, but can be accessed across different systems. And then we said, well, what if we take that and we actually put out essentially like a bounty for somebody creating a new AI model? And we did that, and we ran the whole thing on the Ethereum blockchain back in 2018.
Wow.
It cost crazy amounts of money because we actually ran these neural networks paying gas to do so. I think.
Yeah. What was that?
It was maybe like $30,000 to $50,000 that we paid for that experiment then. And so like now I'm sure it's like millions of dollars, but
yeah. Oh, if we did it on mainnet, I'm sure. Yeah.
But the point there is that like the blockchain as being a source of truth is actually really valuable for AI, because as these agents are moving around, how do you actually know what they're doing? Even like, and especially as they go multi-system, that sort of thing, it's like you want them to hash and log their activities as part of their DNA, basically. And so that's part of it. Then transactions, right? Like, how do you plug all of these different AI tools together? Well, you can either go to a one-stop shop like OpenAI or somebody like that, and they're going to give you all the tools in one place, but they're going to own the data. A lot of people are actually going to want to be able to customize these and like build things as they come. Like there's a ton of early adopters that want access to these tools, and they're finding it through Web 2, but they have to put a credit card in and pay a VC-backed monthly subscription or annual subscription. Then they need to plug that thing into their agent. They need to do key management. Like, and that's actually the hardest part. Like Karpathy's talking about how I can vibe code stuff, but all of that like DevOps, setting up all the other shit, like that's the hard part. And he's like, I vibe coded the thing in a day and it took a week to get the product out, as one of the smartest people in the world. And when you use Web3 technologies now, imagine that you're using Souls and you've got your Think agent and you've got Think in your wallet. Now you want to use Render. Well, Render's on Solana. Okay, so am I going to go buy Solana, set it up? Or can my Think agent actually say, hey, I'd love to pay you to do some rendering for me? And there's just a Think Render swap pool available. And so now you don't even have to think about subscriptions, credit cards, API keys. Your agent has the ability to use and pay for things and authenticate itself and encrypt along the way. So I think we're going to create a better product.
Got it. So within the Think agent ecosystem, there will be a Think token, and that token will be used to traverse like these different connections that you were just saying. So for example, if I specifically wanted to use Render, or maybe I specifically wanted to get inference from Venice or somewhere else where I need to swap to their native token, I can do it all organically with the Think token.
That's the goal, yes.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Well, and that touches on one of the answers I give to people with this similar question in mind is that I believe part of the reason Web3 has not had the adoption it should yet is because smart contracts, the user experience is terrible. I mean, like, I've been in crypto now since 2017-ish, and I still am triple checking every transaction. I'm still like
me too.
Testing stuff before I actually try it for real, you know? And then like, you know, there's always like the finger crossed, like hopefully it works, right? But when you have an agent executing the smart contract on your behalf with the proper guardrails, now people don't need to learn how to use smart contracts. They just work because they do. And I think that solves that issue, which, to your point on the like token swap side of things, if it's just automated and it just works, that's what people want, right? So that makes sense. Yeah, I like your answer. So I think it's funny. This is 2 episodes in a row where someone has given me some pushback where I'm too focused on certain aspects of it related to like the political principle, and then in the last episode it was being too focused on the money and not necessarily on like what the AI product actually is. So like to your point, even somebody who's a Web 2 company can benefit from DAI because having all of that data on chain allows them to have a record of, well, what did your agent do? And you got me thinking, like, agents or models lie, like they don't know that they're lying, but they'll try to cut corners to give you responses to things. And so if I say, where did you pull this from? And it gives me an answer, but I have no way of verifying that that's actually true. How useful is that? So I hadn't even really thought of it from that perspective. That is very interesting.
And also, like, if we're looking at it as a substitutionary product in like a product market, that's one thing. But if you reframe it as this month, the fewest number of people are going to be laid off because they got replaced by AI as probably any other month for the next decade.
Yeah.
So there's a substitution happening of knowledge work in which there's going to be a larger and larger group of people that are fairly well educated, that have been disciplined enough to keep a job, that find that they are no longer in a place of economic utility that is commensurate with their lifestyle. And I'm already seeing people like being laid off from Microsoft and these other places. And they're like, well, all I really know how to do anymore is be like a neuron in a corporate brain. And, but then you watch those people take that brain and start applying it to building an agent. And pretty soon they're like, oh, well, I understood how, like, somebody might be like, well, I was doing sales to this specific vertical of dentists, right? So I understand their problems. Now, all of a sudden, when you give that person a tool to be like, oh, you could actually automate the reach out process for being able to go talk to people and get them back in for their 6-month cleaning. Like, how big do you think that market is?
Oh, specifically for dentists?
Yeah, just that one market.
Oh, I mean, hundreds of millions, like across the globe. I mean, it has to be like, well, just in the US, pretty much everyone sees a dentist. And remember, it's paid typically by insurers, not out of pocket. So massive.
So you have in that you've got education, then you've got education on how to actually use the application. Then you've got support in being able to incubate the thing that you want to do with that agent. Now we're in a spot where you have thousands of people trying things. And when the first 2 people find the thing that starts to work, how many people do you think are going to be like, hey, how'd you do that? Can I do that with you?
Right.
There's going to be whole companies that start. Like I watch, I had friends that, I had a friend that was the first person on whatever Google Analytics was before. I think it was Urchin or something. I can't remember what it was called. But Google bought it, and he was like the expert on it. Everybody in the forums looked to him. He ended up creating like the largest Google Analytics partner, ended up creating a huge company, selling it. And I knew probably 25 or 30 people that went from, not having a tech job to they learned how to do analytics to then they worked on analytics with GoPro and all these huge companies. And now they have great tech careers because somebody put their foot in the door, they started a new thing, and then everybody else got a job from it.
So I have 2 questions with this. So the first one being the entrepreneurial person in the scenario you're describing will be able to effectively take their own agent and build a business around it, basically, or combined other people's agents because now they're picking up all of their intelligence and experience. And so basically what you're describing is the entrepreneurial person running that show, but then you have the person who is essentially able to monetize their own intelligence by selling it to these businesses. But then the implication is you could sell it to multiple businesses, right? I guess it would depend on what the contracting looks like and all that different stuff. But wow, you could actually bifurcate your intelligence and have different revenue streams based on your own intelligence, selling it to different places, right? Yeah.
And then you go from service, right? Like there's this development process that something goes from R&D to a high price specialized service, to a low price commodity service, to a product, to a commodity. And that life cycle happens across every single technology. And like us being right at the beginning, right? Like AI agents like Karpathy, one of the biggest AI people in the world, last night was just talking about like what this next season looks like, and it like think agents are like almost exactly right in the square middle of what he calls software 3.0, right? And we're setting up. We've got both the technology and the people, so that we're going to start training people on that, and we're going to ride that wave all the way to commodity, and like we can win that, right? Like OpenAI can't win the commodity market because they're losing money today in the early high price market.
Yeah. I also just think overall closed source models are going to lose because they're just going to get deep seeked over and over and over, and open source will continue and eventually surpass them. No, that's super interesting. I also really like the implications of passing down agents. Like if you have a grandchild and you then pass down your on-chain intelligence going forward, you could actually like perpetually monetize or perpetually gain value from your family's lineage of intelligence and like how they decided to use it, which is a really crazy implication. I mean, that's something I've thought about with wallet addresses before. Like at some point, or maybe not literally Vitalik, but somebody like Vitalik will take a wallet address, clear it out, and then sell access to that wallet for an absurd amount of money because it'll be valuable to be like, I own the wallet address that did XYZ thing or belongs to XYZ person. And you'll be able to verify that. It's kind of similar to an NFT, but this is the same thing, only taking it like a million steps further to like, hey, I've actually captured in a bottle the essence of the intelligence that was this person, this business, whatever it is. Oh man, it's so cool and exciting. Are there any challenges like immediately or maybe medium term challenges that you guys see as kind of like hurdles that you're working through?
God, I mean, every week, right? Like when you're in a startup, there's constantly challenges. There's people challenges, there's market challenges, there's regulatory challenges. Like a year ago, like the idea of open source AI and it being out of control and out of the government's control was like, that's going to be illegal. Mm-hmm. Right. And like all the news was talking about how AI is, and that came and went. We saw similar types of changes happen with crypto, just in general, like how crypto is regulated. And you're responding to a fast paced changing world. Right. So there's always a bunch of obstacles. Right now, what I would say is like we have overcome so many things. Like right now, I'm like, oh, we're going to launch like in July. All this stuff's going to be coming out. It's going to be like an interesting thing is like you should never do dates in Web3 because you're not in control of a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've learned that lesson a little bit where you're like, okay, well, our goal is to hit June. Looks like we're going to hit July. Mm-hmm. But those are the challenges. It's just like, how do you run an organization like this? How do you communicate? How do you do it fully decentrally? How do you how do you just do all these things? We're pioneers. We're starting. There's not a lot of people to look to who know how to do this.
Yeah. I mean, you're among people doing this literally for the very first time, which, and not only that, like they couldn't have done it at any other point in time. So that's amazing. Well, I'm super excited to see what you guys do with Think. I know you have a little bit of a short schedule today, so I will let you go, but I want to make sure before you do, where can people find you? So if they want to follow Think, everything you guys are doing, where should they be going?
Yeah, so X is the best place. Follow me, Mikey, at Mikey Anderson, MIKEY, and then at Think Agents.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I will also link to that in the bio of the video in the episode. And thank you so much for the time, man. Seriously, from both a principals perspective and like a user who just loves using these technologies, I could not be more excited and aligned with what you guys are doing. And I know that a ton of people in the Morpheus community, like the Venn diagram of support in the two communities, I think are pretty close, as well as, a lot of the other DAI projects, which is great.
Oh, fully. Without Morpheus, we would not be where we're at today. Actually, I met David at Permissionless in the year before Morpheus launched. Mm-hmm. So I was there. I found out that Eric Voorhees and I met or like talked with David about it in the same hour at the
That's awesome.
For the first time. And as soon as David talked about his vision, I'm like, that's exactly what needs to happen. I'm on board. So I'm part of that community, and I can't wait for us to have our feet under us a little bit more so that we can give back to that community as well.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it very much. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, dude. Peace. Thank you.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
You're listening to Brain Power.